Well. I think I was right about everything to do with those children. Um, I had said previously that I think those kids are probably in a wooded area with tall trees, grassland, woodland. It turns out Chad Daybell's property had all that. And not only that, the Ouija board said that the kids were near water. Chad Daybell's property is very near a stream, very near a creek. But I just wanted to talk about how disgusted I am with the family members of Laurie, particularly her mother and her sister. They do this interview talking about how she's invested her entire life in those children. That just really makes me annoyed and angry because no mother who is invested in her children would run off to Hawaii and get married without having her children there. So that just really irritates me and it really, really makes me angry. I hate it when family members, I understand you love your sister or you love your daughter or whatever. I understand family loyalty. But when you can see somebody is blatantly not taking care of their responsibilities in terms of their children, when you haven't heard from your grandkids in months and weeks, and you're sitting there talking about how your daughter is invested in her children, I think that's very insulting to the public's intelligence. And I also think it's very insulting in general. She should have, her mother and her sister should have been sitting in that interview saying, why is she doing this? Why is she behaving this way? Why have we not heard from the kids? And they should have been trying to make an inquiry as to why the kids hadn't been seen or heard for that amount of time. It just really disgusts me how families can be such in denial about their loved ones. Because anyone with a reasonable brain could have known that something was not right about Laurie Vallow, that something was not right about her being with this Chad Daybell, going off to Hawaii, getting married, not saying anything about where the children are, people not hearing or seeing these children for months and weeks. And it just really disgusts me. Also, how her niece can sit there in an interview talking about how she hasn't seen the children, but, acting as if, the children must be okay. If you haven't seen your grandkids for months and weeks, you shouldn't be assuming that they are okay. You should be concerned about your grandchildren. You should be concerned enough to make an inquiry. You should be concerned enough that you can sit in an interview and actually say, I love my daughter, but I condemn her actions. It just really, really makes me angry how families, and I see this in the Chris Watts case and other cases, how families are so in denial about their own children or their siblings. We all knew that something wasn't right about this situation. We all know that Charles Vallow was murdered on Laurie's orders. Charles Vallow was murdered on Laurie's orders by her brother. There's no question in my mind. I can't speak for Tammy Daybell, but I am pretty certain that her death was not by natural causes. I talk about true crime, and I'm not somebody who is a legal expertise. Neither am I a forensic expertise person. Neither am my domain. I'm more interested in the psychopathy of the person, the sociopathy of a person, the personality factors, the mental health issues of a person, why they commit crime. I'm not a forensic person. I'm not going to tell you about autopsy and go into graphic details about people's bodies. That's for somebody else. That's for other channels. Some channels talk about the legal side of things. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't talk about that. But everyone knew that something was smelling very, very bad about this whole situation. And for Laurie's niece, for Laurie's sister, and for her mother to sit in an interview and talk about how a wonderful, loving person she is, just really, really gets to me. It's just really makes me just so angry. It's just completely and utter ignorance and pure denial. But the other thing I want to talk about is I don't understand why Chad Daybell's charges were so very light. You have two dead bodies on a man's property. You have two missing children. He should have been charged with murder in the first place. It took them months and months of this asshole to get arrested. for this despicable person to get arrested. And then when they finally do arrest him, they charge him with pathetic, low sentence charges. And I just think it's absolutely disgusting. This man should be charged with murder, and Laurie should be charged with murder. That should have been the first thing that they did, charge this man with murder. You don't have 2 missing kids and 2 dead bodies on your property, and you can just be charged with what? Concealing evidence? He should have been charged with murder. And this is what I'm saying. Laurie Vallow and this Chad Daybell, they had been treated with kid gloves. We all know that both of these, I can't even call them human beings. We all know that both Laurie and Chad were in on everything. Okay? We all know that they are both guilty. No woman, no mother who's loving would flee from one country to the next, or one state to the next, get married, and just live their lives as if nothing has happened without being concerned about their children. They're the Doomsday duo. That's what I call them, the Doomsday duo. She's disturbed. She's mentally ill, but she's not insane. She knew what she was doing. She knew what she was doing when she had her husband killed. And I believe Tammy Daybell, whatever the coroner reports, I absolutely believe that Tammy Daybell was murdered. Okay? But I'm absolutely certain that Charles Vallow was murdered. And there was no investigation. The police came and just accepted her brother's telling of the story, or telling of the version of events. There was no investigation. That makes me really angry, how this man was murdered and there was no thorough investigation into this crime. So this woman, after having her husband murdered and getting away with it, she thought that she could then move on into this next life, collect a hefty sum of money, and get rid of and discard her children, because that's exactly what happened. Both Laurie and Chad discarded these kids because they wanted to live in their own little fantasy world, and they didn't want to have the responsibility, neither financial or emotional. It's an absolutely disgrace, the dead bodies that these 2 people have left behind. It's an absolute disgrace that neither Tammy's death or Charles Vallow's death was properly investigated. It just makes me so angry. The nerve of it all, the nerve of these people. And I'm very annoyed with the police as well, with the authorities, the powers that be, because this man, at the minute he got into court, the minute he sat down, the first thing should have been to charge this man with murder. And people who say, oh, well, the police are working really hard on this case to investigate this case, blah, blah, blah. This should have been solved a long time ago, a very long time ago. This shouldn't have gone on for months, weeks and months. This should have been solved a long time ago. Chad and Laurie have been able to get away with murder for at least a year. And like I'm saying that it's pure white privilege. It is pure white privilege, because I can tell you, if Laurie and Chad were black people, they would have been charged with murder already. What are they waiting on? What are they waiting on? There should be no bail for this guy. 2 dead bodies were found on his property. These people have ruined so many people's lives. So many people's lives with their disgusting behavior, with their narcissistic, sociopathic, psychopathic behavior. They've ruined lives. And the authorities sat on their asses, were asleep at the wheel, not doing anything about it. Charles Vallow, Laurie should be sitting in prison, charged with her husband's murder. It just makes me very, very angry, because I think that they've been able to get away with murder for far, far too long.